I must confess that that dream that I had that day has at many points turned into a nightmare.
How do you feel about the church in today's society?
Well, when it comes to today's society and the involvement of the church, I feel like there's very little. Like, when we really look at it, let's compare Dr. King to your average pastor today. Two different levels, two different motives. There's no real support from the church in the community, because the church has went from being a tier in the community to being a bank or a profit. You're selling church, and I don't agree with it. There's not enough real in the churches today. I don't believe in church people. I see a lot of people that go to church, but honest to God, Christian, I guess, very few and far between. There is no church in today's society. The church has fallen off almost 100%. The key elements to what the church was even based on and being the center of the community is not even a factor anymore. The church is more of a gambling site or a way to profit than a helpful place for the community. I don't think Dr. King would agree with any of it.
Now, the other thing that we've got to come to see now that many of us didn't see too well during the last 10 years, that is that racism
not guilty
is still alive in American society and much more widespread.
Broke his neck after Baltimore police.
A handful of protesters, a handful of criminals and thugs who.
Many in moments of anger, many in moments of deep bitterness, engage in riots. And as long as America postpones justice, we stand in the position of having these recurrences of violence and riots over and over again. Social justice and progress are the absolute guarantors of riot prevention.
Mr. Gray's death was a homicide.
and create jobs.
The Negro is to be free. He must move down into the inner resources of his own soul and sign with a pen and ink of self-assertive manhood his own emancipation proclamation. But I want to get the language right tonight. I want to get the language so right that everybody here will cry out, yes, I'm black, I'm proud of it, I'm black and beautiful. We mean business now, and we are determined to gain our rightful place in God's world.
I would like to preach from the subject guidelines for a constructive church. This morning I would like to submit to you that we who are followers of Jesus Christ and we who must keep his church going and keep it alive also have certain basic guidelines to follow. Somewhere behind the dim mist of eternity, God set forth his guidelines. And through his prophets, and above all through his Son Jesus Christ,
He said that there are some things that my church must do. There are some guidelines that my church must follow. And if we in the church don't want the funds of grace cut off from the divine treasury, we've got to follow the guidelines. The guidelines are clearly set forth for us. You see, the church is not a social club, although some people think it is. They get caught up in their exclusivism, and they feel that it's a kind of social club with a thin veneer of religiosity, but the church is not a social club. The church is not an entertainment center, although some people think it is. You can tell in many churches how they act in church, which demonstrates that they think it's an entertainment center. But in the final analysis, the church has a purpose. The church is dealing with man's ultimate concern. Let us first think of the fact that if the church is following its guidelines, it seeks to heal the brokenhearted. There's probably no human condition more tantalizing than a broken heart. You see, brokenheartedness is not a physical condition. It's a condition of spiritual exhaustion. Who here this morning has not experienced a broken heart? I would say brokenheartedness comes basically from the trying experience of disappointment. Here it is a young man or a young woman dreaming of some great career and setting out in school to try to make that career possible, only to discover that they don't quite have the mental faculties, the technical know-how to achieve excellence in that particular field, and so they end up having to choose life's second best. And here it is a family, a mother and father striving desperately to train their children up in the way that they should go, working hard to make their education possible, working hard to give them a sense of direction, praying fervently for their guidance, and yet, in spite of all of this, one or two of the children end up taking the wrong road, moving toward some strange and tragic far country. And the parents end up having to acknowledge that the children that they raised, the prodigals, lost in a far country, and they end up with a broken heart. So let not your heart be troubled. If ye believe in God, ye believe also in me. Another voice rings out, come unto me all ye that labor and are heavy laden. As if to say, come unto me all ye that are burdened down. Come unto me all ye that are frustrated. Come unto me all ye that are broke down. Come unto me all ye that are heartbroken. Secondly, when the church is true to its guidelines, it sets out to preach deliverance to them that are captive. This is the role of the church. Then you have another group sitting up there who would really like to do something about racial injustice, but they are afraid of social, political, and economic reprisals. So they end up silent. And the preacher never says anything to lift their souls and free them from that fear. And so they end up captive. God has called me to deliver those that are in captivity. Some people are suffering. Some people are hungry this morning. Some people are still living with segregation and discrimination this morning. I'm going to preach about it. I'm going to fight for them. I'll die for them if necessary because I got my guidelines clear. And the God that I serve and the God that called me to preach told me that every now and then I'll have to go to jail for them. Every now and then I'll have to agonize and suffer for the freedom of his children. I even may have to die for it, but if that's necessary, I'd rather follow the guidelines of God than to follow the guidelines of men. The church is called to set free those that are captive, to set free those that are victims of the slavery of segregation and discrimination, those who are caught up in the slavery of fear and prejudice. Make it plain. The acceptable year of the Lord is that year when people in Alabama will stop killing civil rights workers and people who are simply engaged in the process of seeking their constitutional rights. The acceptable year of the Lord is that year when men will learn to live together as brothers. The acceptable year of the Lord is that year when men will keep their theology abreast with their technology.
Dear Mommy, when you were gone, I missed you so much. The feeling of abandonment made a little boy cry. It was hard for me to really deal with, and I didn't know what to think or how to feel about it. So to help me cope with your absence, I would think of all the moments we shared. It's me, you, and David. I'm about 5 and David is almost 2. We are in your room and you are tickling me and David. We just can't get away. I just remember really enjoying that time we spent. I just want to thank you for being my mother. Happy Mother's Day. Love, Tyshanta.